Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the 250 events in the life of Jesus. I'm sorry, we're looking through the Gospels, looking at the 250 events of the life of Jesus. And today we are looking at Jesus talking about the cost of following him. We get this in Matthew 8, verses 18 through 22, and Luke 9, verses 57 through 62. And today, most of my teaching, I usually go from Matthew, but I actually like Luke's version account of this a little bit better. So I'm going to focus in in Luke's side in Luke 9. And we're going to say, I'm going to be honest with you, this is another one of those hard lessons. And I'll be honest with you, even for me, because um, it hits me kind of hard because, it makes me question a lot of my, commitment and things like that. And I think it's something that we don't talk a lot about when we look at Jesus and following Jesus. And honestly, I think it's one of those things we don't look a lot at when we're talking about converting someone, right? We talk about all the wonderful things, and it's like, hey, you need to follow Jesus, and you need to be baptized, and you need to do this, and we don't talk about, hey, this is what it costs. We don't talk about the cost of following Jesus a lot of times, and we see Christ's example of how he, talked to people before they came to follow him, what the cost was. And I think we need to have a similar approach. And some people will say, well, Chad, this is too hard of approach. But I would rather people up front understand the cost of following Jesus than not let them know or not even talk about it. And then we end up, I think, a lot of times in what we see in many cases is a lukewarm Christianity, or a what we call checkbox version of Christianity, where it's like, yeah, as long as I do a couple of these things, I'm good. And that's not what Christianity is supposed to look like. And so let's look at this today. We're going to start Luke 9, verse 57 through 60. It says, as they were walking along, someone said to Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. And so Jesus says to him, instead of saying, great, man, I really love it, that's human nature, right? We're like, yeah, it's great. Look, come on, follow me. He says, all right, but foxes have dens to live in, and the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place even to lay his head. It's like, okay, you're going to follow me, but we don't have anywhere to live. We're out in the open. We're good. And so he said to another person, come follow me. But the man agreed. He's like, okay. But he said, let me first return home and bury my father. That seems like a reasonable request, right? Let me go, bury my father. We'll talk about that in a little bit, why it's a little different probably in our context today. And Jesus says, let the spiritually dead, some versions say, let the dead bury their own dead. But, the New Living Translation translates this, let the spiritually dead bury their own dead. Your duty is to go and preach about the kingdom of God. And then another said, yes, Lord, I will follow you, but first let me say goodbye to my family. And Jesus told him, said, anyone who puts a hand to the plow and then looks back is not fit for the kingdom of God. So we're going to look at these, and people, you're probably reading this and thinking, or listening to this and thinking, man, he's being harsh, but he's being real, and he's being very real for a purpose, because following Jesus, like I said, we always talk about, and we call ourselves Simply Church and stuff like that. But following Jesus is simple, but it's not easy. And there's a difference. Some people are like, "Oh, there's not a difference." Yeah, there is. It's not We make it complicated, but it's not that complicated. But it is very hard. And so we need to make sure that we understand that following Jesus is not always easy. It's not always comfortable. It often means that it's going to come at a great cost, right? It's in sacrifice, and a lot of times there's not going to be an earthly reward or security for it, right? If you're following Jesus in order to gain something here on earth for it, then your motive's wrong. You're also going to find and possibly find that following Christ may cost you popularity. It may cost you friendships, leisure time, right? Treasured, hobbies, things like that, habits that you enjoy, and things like that you have to cut out, because you have to sacrifice those to follow Jesus. It says, but understand that while the cost of following Jesus is high, the value of being Christ's disciples is even higher. The reward for that is much higher than anything you're going to gain here on earth. And we need to understand that discipleship is an investment that lasts for an eternity, right? And so we need to make sure we understand that. And so let's get to Luke, right? When we see Luke, right, he's talking about the father, right? He's like, let me go bury my father, right? And so in our assumption in today's age, right, where someone says, hey, let me go bury my father, that means more than likely his father's died and I need to go take care of that. And so, and Luke doesn't say here whether his father was already dead or terminally ill. It's possible, right, that this disciple was not asking permission to go to his father's funeral, but was actually rather putting off following Jesus until his elderly father died. And that seems like a more, obviously the Bible doesn't say for sure, but that probably seems to be more of what we're looking at here. Not, hey, my dad just died, let me go bury him. Obviously more than to have the funeral. It's, I'll come follow you, but I got to go wait until my dad dies first. And so, and that's what we're probably at. And so there's some other things. And then the guy like that wanted to go visit his family, yeah, he could have been the firstborn son, or I'm sorry, this I'm still talking about the guy that died. That he also could have been the firstborn son, trying to look for claim the inheritance that he was going to get from it. And perhaps he didn't want to face his father's wrath if he left a family business or something like that to follow some preacher. And so we see that kind of mix. That there's a possibility of, there's multiple reasons why he may have wanted this to happen. Not more than likely in this story, his father wasn't dead; he was waiting for his father to die, so then he could do it. And so that's why Jesus was like, okay, well, you know what? Let the dead bury the dead. And that's why the reference is there. It's like you can come follow me. Let them, when that happens, take care of that. Let the dead take care of the dead is what he's talking about there. And so Jesus just was not going to accept the excuse. He was not. It's like either you follow me or you don't. This is a very important decision. And he was always very direct with those who wanted to follow him, right? Well, we see that with the rich man, right? When the rich man comes, he tells him to sell everything he has. But I don't think we've gotten to that story yet. But we see this, and this is something you would think like this isn't a very good evangelism strategy, right? If we were sitting down around the table saying, hey, what can we do to attract people to church? It's like, well, let's tell them that they've you know let's tell them, we're going to be harsh and we're going to be direct. We're going to be, we're going to, it's like if their father's ill and dying, we're telling them that they got to come and focus on being a Christian first. And we look at that and think, man, that's crazy. You wouldn't, but that's how Jesus was with his followers, with those who wanted to follow him. He was very serious about what it was and what it takes to follow him. He starts talking about, you're going to have to pick up your cross to follow me. Well, they understood that if he's talking about picking up a cross, that's death. And so anyone who picked up a cross was dying. They were going to their death. It wasn't well, they might die. It was they were going to die, and they were going to die very quickly and very soon. And so he was just very direct, and he made sure that they counted the cost, right, and set aside any conditions they might have for following him. And I think we need to do this today, right? I don't think that we should just be baptizing people, on a whim and without studying and actually them understanding why they are being baptized, what is expected of them as a new Christian, as a Christian, right? It's we spend a lot of time, you know, I think kind of building all this up, and it's like, oh, look how wonderful it is, and look at the community having, and all those things are nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, but Jesus was first to talk about the cost, right? He talked about the wise man, right? He talks about the farmer and the person that's going out, the guy building stuff, that building houses and building things. They count the cost before they go out and do it. And we need to make sure we sit down with people when we're studying with them and help them understand what the cost of following Jesus is. It's not, hey, you go get baptized and you're good, right? You don't really have to do anything. Show up to church, put some money in the offering plate, take communion every Sunday or on a regular basis, and you're a good Christian. No. But unfortunately, we see that a lot, right? Or we see a lot of people where it's like, oh well, here, do this, and they do it, and they show up for a couple weeks, and then we never see them again. And a lot of that's because we don't go through what it is to truly be a disciple with them. I don't think we sit down and say we study what it's like, oh well, this is what Jesus says you have to do to be saved, but we don't go about what that cost, right? What the cost is of following Jesus. And we talk about the free gift, and and it is a free gift, right? We don't do anything to earn our salvation. There's nothing we do to earn it. And so we don't need to help make anyone think that, but at the same time there's still a cost, right? There's still a cost. And we need to make sure that we go over that. And so things like, even family loyalty, right? They don't take priority of the demands of obedience, right? We are to put Christ first in everything we do, and that's very hard. We're very selfish people. It's human nature to be selfish, and it's hard to get into that practice. And so the decision to follow Jesus should not be put off. Right? I'm not saying, oh well, we need to put it off. If someone's wanting to get baptized, well, we need to put that off until they fully understand. No, but we do need to, before someone's going to say, hey, I want to commit my life to Christ and I want to be baptized. We need to sit down and talk this, have this discussion about what it is to follow Jesus and really go through that and what that commitment should look like. And so we need to make sure that we do that, and nothing can be placed right above a total commitment to living for him. Not family, not your spouse, and that can seem hard. God should come first. Jesus should come first, right? And that's the awesome thing about it. Is if you put God first in your life, following Jesus first in your life, then all the other things are gonna work out. Those family relationships, right? Those you have a relationship with Christ, and you treat your wife the way Christ wants you to do, or your husband the way that Jesus wants you to. Then that's going to develop and make that relationship better. And so those are the kind of things that we need to make sure that we're willing to do and willing to be committed to. And so, and that's the question you got to ask. Like, what does Jesus want from us? He wants total, complete dedication. He wants 100%, not half-hearted, not something that's half-hearted, not, yeah, well, I show up on a Sunday and maybe a Wednesday, but everything in between is I'm really not, and even when I do come, it's going to be, I might pay half attention. Like, I'll try not to be on my phone too much through while the preacher's preaching. And I mean, that's not commitment. That's anyone can do that, right? Anyone can show up, check boxes. That's not commitment. And so we need to make sure that we are committed to Christ and committed to being disciples. Especially those of us who have chosen to follow Him. And if you haven't, and you're watching this, and you're like, man, this is harsh. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm not trying to be hard, but I want people to understand that following Jesus isn't a, hey man, we you say a prayer and or say that you believe Jesus, and and we dunk you under some water, and as long as you show up to and put a certain amount of money in the offering plate and do a couple of good deeds and you're good. That's not commitment. All right, and unfortunately, many times in the church, we've kind of made that what the standard for being a Christian is, and it's much beyond that, much more beyond that. And so we can't pick and choose among Jesus' ideas and follow them selectively. We have to follow all of them. Everything he says that we are to do, we are to do. And anything he commands us, we are to work towards. We're not going to do it perfectly. We're humans. We're not going to. He's the only one that could do it perfectly, and that's why he was the ultimate sacrifice. And so we just need to make sure that we are committing ourselves to following Christ the way that he calls us to follow Christ, by putting him first no matter what. That's hard, and it is a hard thing. But I would rather say this now, and then we understand that, than us think that a mediocre version of Christianity is going to get us through. I don't know if it will. And so we need to make sure that we have that commitment. I appreciate everyone for watching. I know this one's a little bit harder. This one's a hard one for me, because I know I don't live up to this, and I know I'm supposed to live up to this, and so I know I need to do a better job. And so, on this one, more than anything, I'm probably teaching to speaking to myself, as we go through this. But it's hard. Following Jesus is not easy. As always, I appreciate everyone for listening and watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. We'll continue to put out little daily videos like this for now, and then we're going to dive into some deeper, more help you through your life, help you through issues that you're going through kind of videos. As always, thank you for watching.